Hello StreetSnappers, and welcome back to my channel following a short break. The reason for this break is that I've been up against the deadline for finishing my next book, and you're maybe familiar with this book, 52 Assignments Street Photography. Well, the next one is in the same series, and it's 52 Assignments Black and White Photography. And this should be hitting the shelves in the bookshops round about September time. So today we've got another street photography Q&A video with 8 questions from all around the world on a wide range of street photography topics, all submitted by you. So the first question is from Dan the Man from New York, who asks, when would you use black and white? Well, it's a great question, Dan. I'm basically a colour shooter. I think we live in a very colourful world, and to me, colour just feels more authentic for street photography. And I know I've just talked about doing a black and white book, but I don't use black and white very much for street, I've got to say. I'm certainly not against it, but I do think that the decision to shoot in black and white should be made before you press the shutter, not as an afterthought. I don't think it's good practice to try to resuscitate a bad colour shot by converting it to black and white. And I know we've all done it from time to time, but to be honest, it'll usually end up looking like a bad black and white shot. So back to your question, when would I use black and white? I'd probably use it for a project, but as a deliberate aesthetic choice. So I do use black and white, but with a sense of intent. I don't just think, oh, that one might look okay in black and white. It tends to be part of a considered thought process, and usually attached to a project, if that makes sense. So the second question is from Karak. How do you know if the photos you're taking are any good, and whether you're improving as a photographer? Another interesting question. We all have a personalised and an internalised view of our own work, and it's not often a good measure, but it's an important view, so I don't think we should be too quick to dismiss it, our own thoughts about what we think about our work. We can look at work from look at the work we like from other photographers and measure ourselves against that. We can enter competitions, we can join clubs and groups and so on. But I think good critique is the best measure. And I don't mean, by good critique, I don't mean putting pictures on Instagram and then everybody says, wow, awesome capture, and you think you've got a great image when you haven't. People are too nice. And it's the same when you ask your friends and family for critique. And they will also, they'll just praise your work to the heavens, and it's just not very helpful. When I talk about critique, I mean real critique ideally from other street photographers who understand this genre, and people who can actually read an image. And I don't know where you are in the world, but try to seek out like-minded people and maybe form a little critique circle. Maybe meeting once a month and discussing some prints. It's great just to spread some prints out on the table and do a nice critique, sometimes over a drink. It's very satisfying, and it's actually a great way to spend an evening. So I think critique is the best measurement for how you're actually progressing. So on to the next question, which is from Lindy from San Francisco, who has a question about Fujifilm. How do you get to be a Fujifilm ambassador? Well, this is a fairly easy one, Lindy. I've been a Fujifilm ambassador, or as we call them, an X-photographer, for about 3 years now. And unless Fujifilm's criteria has changed much, they generally like their ambassadors to be full-time professional photographers who are, 1, well-known in the field, and 2, have been using Fujifilm gear extensively for a significant period of time. I also think a good engaged social media is quite helpful, though possibly not essential. And when I say a good profile, not necessarily having hundreds of thousands of followers, but having engaged followers and supporters and people who actually appreciate your work and you do have interaction with. So, don't think that going away and buying 50,000 followers is going to help, because it's not. So they're looking for ambassadors who are easy to work with, who can deliver words and images often at short notice, who can run workshops, who can give lectures, who can give talks and presentations. And it probably goes without saying that you need a really strong body of work to back you up. In the case of Fujifilm, it's a great family to be part of, to be perfectly honest, and it's very rewarding, though not particularly financially rewarding. And contrary to popular belief, we don't get given loads of free gear, but it's really satisfying in other ways. And I think if you're thinking about this question in relation to yourself, Lindy, then if it's going to happen, you're probably already on the radar of Fujifilm USA. And the way it usually works is that they tend to come to you rather than the other way around. So I hope that's helpful. Right, we have another question from Michael from Kent. I wonder if it's Prince Michael of Kent. Who knows? Anyway, he's asking about producing zines and wants to know how difficult it is to produce a zine and where I get mine made. Very topical question. A lot of people producing zines at the moment. Great thing to do. It's a great way to bring a project to life. And I produce zines all the time. And the good news is it's not at all difficult. If you're a Lightroom user, you can set up the document in Lightroom and export the whole thing as a PDF. Personally, I set mine up in Photoshop. So for each page of my zine, it will be a standalone image, and I'll bring them all together at the end. And I use a company called Mixam to produce my zines, and I'll pop a link to them down below. It's a UK company, but I think they deal with customers worldwide. So wherever you are, I've always found Mixam to be a really good choice. So you can download a page template from their website, which could be landscape, portrait, A4, A5, whatever you need, and then drop each of those Photoshop images to a different page. It's a very simple drag and drop system. Convert it to a PDF, and then you're ready to go. It's really easy. It's really straightforward. Have a look at the Mixam website. It will take you through it. Then you can make the decisions about different weights of paper, different finishes for the pages and for the cover. And these are really important decisions, and they can make your zine or break it. And it's really worth thinking through not only the choice of materials, but also the design elements. I see a lot of zines that come across my desk where the photographer might have great images, but they've paid no attention to the design, and the typefaces don't work and don't look good. So do think about the design. It can be a bit of a slog and time consuming, but it's really worth it. So all this might sound a bit daunting, but it's actually really easy, and I'm a bit of a Luddite, so if I can do it, anyone can do it. So good luck with it. Okay, we have another question now from Graham from Edinburgh. Do you ever use a wide lens for street photography? And if so, what are the benefits? So the answer is most definitely yes. I'll answer this question in full frame terms to keep it consistent. My most used lenses for street photography in this order are the 35, the 24 and the 50. So if I go back to crop sensor terms, that's something like 23 to 24, my most used lens, an 18 or a 16, and then a 35. So if we take the 24, which equates to the 16mm to be the widest that I would normally use, so the 24 equates to the Fujifilm 16mm lens, I absolutely love shooting this wide. You can get really close to people without them having an idea you're shooting them. And I just love the fluidity and the expansiveness of this angle of view. And using zone focusing with a lens like this at f8 is just a breeze. Practically, my whole world is going to be in focus with a lens with this wide optics. So I strongly recommend using a wide lens for street photography. It's sometimes not easy if you're new to street photography to shoot that wide, because you will be pretty close to people. So it's something you may need to practice, get into the habit of, get out there using a lot, and you'll find it gets easier and easier. And when you are using a lens like that, you will find that you're really enjoying it. And the next question is it's a very quick question from Lawrence from North London, who wants to know if we'll be at the UK photography show this year. And the answer is most definitely yes. The show takes place in September at the NEC in Birmingham. And we've got a bigger stand this year, which is right next to the Fujifilm stand. And I think that with the demise of Photokina, which was certainly Europe's biggest show, this has now got to be Europe's premier photography show. And I wouldn't miss it for the world. If you've never been before, do go to the photography show in September if you're UK based, or even if you're coming in from overseas. It's a great show. There are masses of talks, seminars, workshops, demonstrations, events of all kinds, and just about every manufacturer in the industry has a stand there. So you can buy absolutely anything, and there are usually some very good deals to be had. So I will definitely be at the photography show with our stand. So the next question is from Axel in Vienna, who asks, how much post-production do you do for street photography, and do you use Lightroom presets? So I'm going to give you my personal answer here, and there is no right or wrong, but you've asked what I do, Axel, so here goes. If I've got to spend more than 20 or 30 seconds on an image in post-production, I feel like I'm wasting my life away. For me, street photography has to be authentic. It's a true record of what I saw. And if I have to start applying filters and changing colors and doing all sorts of tricksy stuff in Photoshop, then I feel as though I'm stripping away a little bit of that authenticity with every click of the mouse. And I just don't feel comfortable. And the same goes for presets. I don't think I've ever used a preset in my life, and I don't think I ever will. Because to me, it feels like you're applying somebody else's creativity to your own work. It just doesn't feel right. A bit like painting by numbers. But hey, I accept that loads of people use presets, and good luck to them, each to his own or her own. It's not for me to say what's right or wrong. I can only tell you how I do things. So next question, and this one is from Zara from London, who says, my sister in Berlin is looking at doing a street photography workshop. How would you advise her to choose the right one? So there are lots of people offering street photography workshops. Some are excellent, some okay, and some not so good. I don't think I know anybody in Berlin who does this, so I can't comment on those specifically, but I can give you a few general thoughts of my own. And I think the first thing your sister needs to look out for is, does she like the work of the workshop provider? What are their images like? Anyone running a workshop should have a very substantial body of work as a street photographer. Not as anything else, as a street photographer. And I do mean a substantial body of work, not just a handful of images. And you see this a lot with workshop people. They use the same few images over and over again to promote their workshops. And I think it suggests they don't have a big body of work, maybe not a great deal of experience. So ask your sister, is there a substantial body of street photography to back up the hype? If so, is it the sort of work she admires and aspires to? Does she want to take pictures like that? Then the next factor is the degree of specialization. If somebody offering a street photography workshop is also doing workshops for landscapes, portraits, weddings, whatever, I'd be very cautious. And if it were my money, I'd want to be spending it with a true specialist. And it's like, you know, if you go for an eye operation, you want to go to an eye surgeon who specializes in that, not the heart guy, because he can earn a few extra bucks doing an eye operation. You want to go to the eye specialist. And I think it's the same with choosing a workshop. So then she needs to look more deeply at the workshop leader's track record. They may be the latest big thing on Instagram or the latest YouTube sensation with 500,000 followers. But that doesn't necessarily mean they have the skills to inspire and educate and teach. Although, of course, some can, but she needs to check it out. Then there are reviews which can sometimes help, but look for validated reviews on the likes of Trustpilot, TripAdvisor, something like that. Not something the workshop leader could have just written themselves and bunged on their website. Then it's worth looking at the follow-up. If everything finishes at the end of the workshop, it's not great. If you take my workshops as an example of what I think should happen, participants are invited to become part of a collective which has got a lively online forum. It arranges meetups, it has competitions, it publishes an annual book, it has structured critique, and so on. And there is always ongoing kind of aftercare, really. And anybody who's been on a workshop with me knows that they can phone me up, they can email me if they're stuck or they want a bit of help or advice on something. And that's the sort of environment a workshop leader should be creating. So tell us to look out for that. But I wish your sister good luck in Berlin. There's a very vibrant street photography scene there, and I'm sure she'll find a great workshop provider if she follows some of those guidelines. I mean, I might even run one myself there next year. So the next question is from Chris Eustace. Hi, Chris. My question is, have you ever missed a moment because you arrived a bit too early or late, or were distracted for some reason and didn't take the shot? And the answer is sadly yes, though I hope not very often. For me, street photography is all about absolute concentration, being fully tuned into my surroundings and zoning out everything else. And the more you make a conscious effort to do this, the more natural it becomes, and you are very in the moment. You're very purposeful about getting that shot. And then I guess there's the question of hesitation, which most of us suffer from to some degree. And this is something we really need to try and eliminate from our shooting. So when I see that moment, I instinctively take the shot and I don't hesitate. If I were to hesitate for whatever reason, I'd probably miss that moment and would regret it forever. So again, like a lot of this, like a lot of street photography, it comes down to practice, Chris, and you've got to get out there, practice, and just be tuned in, concentrate. Don't do anything else. Don't have other people with you. Don't listen to music. Be completely zoned in. So I think that's it for today's questions. If you'd like me to feature your question in a future video, please pop it in the comments box below. I may not use it straight away because I try and get a good balance of questions, but I will get around to it at some point. So my next video is going to be another one where I look at the street photography greats and what we can learn from them. And the next one is Joel Meyerowitz. So please stay tuned for that. As always, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting the channel. And I do hope to see you next time. Bye for now.